Well, hi everyone. I'm John Redlin with the retro review of WWE Backlash 2000. Well, they made up for Mania 16, didn't they? Because, my God, the ending of that event was pretty much frowned upon. People hated it. People fucking hated it. Even though a heel eventually has to retain at WrestleMania to anger the crowd, you're supposed to end the show of shows with a way to hook the audience and not anger them. And it wouldn't be the last time that Vince McMahon would anger people at WrestleMania. But anyway, this is about the follow-up show, Backlash, which was fitting. I wish they would have kept Backlash after WrestleMania because it was perfect to wrap up any feuds they carried over from Mania. Or to, wrap up any feuds that started right after Mania. Basically, to just get the whole Backlash theme, like, oh, you beat me at Mania. Well, I'm going to get my Backlash on you. I'm going to get my revenge on you. They couldn't call it WWE Revenge. That would have been too much. But anyway, how was this show? Messy at times, but boy, the DC crowd was really goddamn hot. And that finish, holy shit, that finish. So, the old school Attitude Era bump, I always miss that. That's really, really fun. And the unique pay-per-view set with the weird bladey things that, did this, the weird curvy things that did that. They curved slightly and went up and into each other and everything. And, I might be thinking of a different kind of wrestling. But anyway, this is all built around the return of Austin. He was not there. Rock said he was going to have Stone Cold in his corner. Stone Cold, who had been off of TV for a while due to recovering from neck surgery. And he had actually appeared on SmackDown, but in a pre-taped segment outside where he blew up the DX bus. That was some good shit. DX in 2000, boy. It went better than NWO 2000, but then again, you could have shat something else out, and it would have gone better than NWO 2000. Deborah is a special guest ring announcer. They put Deborah out there, somebody that couldn't talk, had no presence, and, she had tits. That's about it. That's really about all she offered to wrestling. I'm sorry as far as the person, but as far as a wrestling character, what did she have? She pushed her boobs up. That was all they had her do. That was it. And she was an awful ring announcer. So we have Road Dogg and X-Pac with Tori, not Tori Wilson, but Tori, the one that disappeared after a couple more years in the company, versus Edge and Christian. It was a tag team championship match. This was okay, went on a little long. What really helped this show, if this show had just had, not even a mediocre, but just like a decent crowd, like the pop for some things, it would not have helped the show at all. Some of these matches were helped by the fact that WWE couldn't do anything wrong at this point. I mean, they did a lot wrong, but they couldn't do anything wrong in the fans' eyes because WCW was so freaking slacking off by this point. They were done because they had decided to make David Arquette their champion. And if you want to check out my rant on that, check out the old school wrestling reviews and documentary reviews playlist. And I have a full review, 30-minute rant about that Thunder episode, where I will say right now, I did not knock David Arquette. I knocked the decision because David Arquette is a hell of a wrestling fan. But anyway, back to this. It was fine. There was distracting stuff, distractions, typical near falls, all that. And the ring bell hit X-Pac in the head and cut him. I think legit cut him because it looked like he was gashed pretty bad, and hopefully he was okay. That looked pretty nasty. Christian pins X-Pac. Okay, there we go. Sky Too Hotty versus Dean Malenko, light heavyweight championship, and yep. I mean, Scotty's partner was just hanging around in the back, so we had Dean Malenko and Scotty going alone here. And it was fast-paced at first. A lot of people forget that Scotty was actually a pretty decent to pretty good wrestler. Dean with a lot of groundwork. He would only work a little bit longer because he would have neck issues, and he was also, I believe, 40 by this point, so age was starting to catch up to him, and all the miles on his body. It was a little bit, there was this one point where everything kind of went off the rails a little bit. There was this move that kind of knocked Dean Malenko loopy. You could tell it was either a concussion or something clouded his vision because he was rocked. It wasn't like necessarily things were sloppy, but you could tell things were off. And eventually, even though Scotty did hit his worm, he busted out his worm all over Dean Malenko. He would fall to a spike DDT variation off the top 1, 2, 3. And then Patterson and Briscoe are back. They're part of the McMahons. Great. Okay, Patterson. Can't stand Pat Patterson. He may have invented the Royal Rumble concept. He may have come up with that. Pat Patterson's a piece of shit. Read up on him. You'll know what the fuck I'm talking about. Gerald Briscoe also doesn't apparently appreciate when you knock Wes. Apparently, I mean, I guess he just decides to get upset. But yeah, Pat Patterson, not a good guy. So we get the Acolytes versus Bossman and Bull Buchanan. Bull Buchanan shined here because that guy was flat out ridiculous. I really wish that he had been given more chances in both WWE and another company. Because it's just a shame. He was so athletic and so goddamn good. I mean, I don't think he's been in wrestling for a while. And if he has, I haven't seen him on any mainstream platform. Which is a shame because he was a natural at it. And eventually him and Bossman would get the victory after a top rope scissor kick. There we go. All this scissoring action already, and we're only 3 matches in. And Austin still not there, and everybody's getting a little bit unnerved. Also, Jerry Lawler was kind of insufferable on commentary. I know there was a time where Jerry Lawler was, less insufferable on commentary, and I think that was around the time that both of his sons were alive. So anyway, Crash Holly, Hardcore Holly, Matt and Jeff, Taz and Saturn in a 6-way hardcore championship match where basically instead of the free-for-all thing that's happened with 24/7 rule and what happened at Mania 16, Mania 2000, where anybody could pin anybody and win the championship, what happened is Crash has to now be, factored into the pinfall. Either you have to pin Crash or Crash has to pin somebody, and that's the only way it can end. It can't just end with anybody pinning anybody. So, yeah, they used the weird bladey things to, this weird stuff, the stuff that swung back and forth in the entrance. I believe Matt did some kind of weird dive because Matt always had to dive. Why did the Hardys wish to leave the mortal realm so soon? Well, it was a mess. It wasn't very good. There was an extension cord, and Chris Benoit wasn't even on the show yet. He'd be on the show later. Hi, I'm going to make this as uncomfortable as possible. Tagline for the show. I should trademark that. So, we get a ladder, Jeff doing things off the ladder, a bunch of near falls getting broken up, and then Crash wins. After Taz had been hit in the head with a sign, which got rid of what was left of his neck, and then eventually Crash got over on him and got an arm over him. 1, 2, 3. And then Shane McMahon interview. Shane McMahon is going to be the special guest referee for Triple H versus The Rock. And he's going to call it right down the middle. He's like Bill Alfonso, except Shane is tolerable. Shane is not an insufferable twat like Bill Alfonso, at least as far as a wrestling character. Now, later, Shane would become insufferable. But right here, at least playing the spoiled rich kid, it sort of worked. Kurt Angle versus Big Show. Big Show is the Hulkster. Actually, hokey. It was pretty hokey. That actually fits. He was the showster. And not the shyster. And despite the fact that Angle got in a few shots, he got squashed. I don't know why they were having Angle lose these kind of matches. They were having Big Show do a whole bunch of comedy stuff because they felt that he was being lazy, and it is what it is. But still, that was pretty ridiculous. I digress. Anyway, chokeslam 1, 2, 3. Dudley's versus TNA and Trish. Well, with Trish. And Trish had been distracting Bubba Ray. She'd been distracting him, saying, oh, that that she likes Bubba. She's doing this, playing with some wood right in front of him. The table is what I'm saying. They also had Trish do the Valley Girl voice at this point, which was kind of funny. She would then be able to do her more natural voice, which was a lot calmer and everything, but they were having to play the ditzy blonde because WWE was badly booking their women, and at least they don't book their women bad. Oh, wait. They kind of still book quite a few of their women bad. They show Billy Corgan in the crowd, the Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan, now the owner of the NWA. 20 years have passed. It is weird. Wrestling is weird. The match was okay. There were some near falls and stuff like that. Test and Albert would eventually get the victory because Trish would distract Bubba, and he would get a big boot from Test. And then they would lay out Test and Albert, and then they would grab Trish. She tried kissing Bubba, figuring that would work. That would work this time. Nope. He powerbombed her through a table, and the crowd roared. This is great. At least the fans respect women in wrestling more now. About that, quite a few don't. Still really rather sad. It's making jokes are one thing, but there are some people that are like, yeah, women's wrestling can't draw. By the way, you people are wrong. You people are wrong, and I have a pretty good idea why you feel that way and who you support. But enough of that. The crowd roared, though. I mean, that's a great, way to cheer on equal rights and all that. Nah, it was what it was. Eddie and Chyna arrived late while Trish is being stretchered out. She got hardwood all over her back, and then she's taken to a local medical facility for bruised spine and anal bleeding. And if you get that, boy, you guys have been watching wrestling for quite a bit. That was 2011. Dear God, we are all just soon to pass on because, man, that was almost a decade ago. So Eddie and China arrive late. If Eddie doesn't get to the ring soon, he's going to have to forfeit his European Championship. So we get Eddie and China coming from the prom, apparently, because Eddie had gotten his GED and had gone to the prom with China, and, you know, it's weird. And Eddie took on S.A. Rios with Lita. S.A. Rios was still being featured on pay-per-views at this point. This wouldn't last very long, as we would get Lita teaming with the Hardys a little bit later. And it wasn't very good. It wasn't. The crowd was burned out by this point after, you know, Bubba had splattered his wood all over Trish's back, so they were kind of burned out. Also, they had no reason to be invested in S.A. Rios, and nothing against the guy. Guy's a tremendous athlete. They just had no reason to be invested in him. And Lita and China get in there and cause some interference stuff. And Lawler with his good old-fashioned racism. And it wasn't even like heel commentary. It's like, whew, oh boy. Because Ventura was borderline. Heenan made it funny. And yeah, times change, but boy, Lawler just wasn't. Lawler never knew what to call moves. Because he's a goddamn idiot. Because he could only do, like, 3 moves. And sure, he drew in Memphis and a couple other areas, and that's it. So, airplane. I don't like Jerry Lawler, can you tell? We get a weird airplane spin thing in 1, 2, 3. It was an airplane spin variation, and Eddie Guerrero wins. Cool. All right. And then China gets her gown stripped off by Lita. Okay. I don't know why. Whatever. Eddie liked it. That was funny. Eddie made that whole thing with China work, and that got to bring out more of China's personality as well. Vincent says Austin won't be here. And then we have a Benoit promo where he's talking about being the happiest he's ever been because he's the Intercontinental Champion, and that he knows what he wants to do to Jericho. He knows what he has to do, and he's going to take a lot of pleasure in doing that. If you listen to this promo, it is really chilling because I have a feeling that was probably his mindset in June of 2007. Oh dear. We then get Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho Intercontinental Championship match. This was very well wrestled. A lot of great stuff that you would expect from these guys. And we got the big, DQ schmoz finish where the referee got knocked down. Tim White. Mr. White, that's not wise. It's the only good line that Josh Matthews ever did. And it was one of the worst things that he was involved in. So actually Josh Matthews was the reason why it was terrible. Josh Matthews is the reason why a lot of things are terrible. Anyway, that's enough of that. The title got brought in, and eventually, Benoit tries for his diving headbutt. Jericho gets out of the way, hits the title into Benoit's head, and the referee calls for DQ because, oh God, what the hell are you doing? So, Benoit escapes with his championship. Jericho puts the referee in the walls of Jericho, and there we go. That's it. Okay, we are on to the main event. Rock versus Triple H with Vince and Stephanie. Shane is a special guest referee. Austin is not there. It's a WWF championship. And Vince, before the match, says, well, take a look at this program. It says cards subject to change. Austin won't be here. The crowd was absolutely electric. They were electrified, pun intended. Constant interference from Vince. Stephanie, for what she was worth, which wasn't much and isn't much now because she's a goddamn idiot. The crowd kept chanting for Austin. They kept building. I will say this was perfectly built. The problem is this match should have happened at Mania. And I love Foley, and I love Big Show. But they should not have been involved in that. This should have been the result at Mania. That's my only complaint about it. But boy, we get double rock bottom at one point where Shane's trying to stop Triple H from getting rock bottom through the announcer's table. So Rock's like, okay, I'm just going to take you with me. Boom, does that. And then Triple H and Shane get wiped out. Shawn would actually come back the next month. Patterson and Briscoe come down. Patterson, fresh off of doing God knows what to so much of the ring crew boys back there, and Briscoe doing whatever he was worth, which wasn't much of anything. And then they're about to count to 3 because Triple H is about to hit the pedigree, and then Austin's glass shatters. I can't describe that pop. You have to listen to it. I mean, I would run the footage. I'd run the footage during the review. But I don't want to get a copyright strike because I don't own the stuff. But you have to listen to the pop. It was absolutely monstrous. It's not even the biggest pop that Austin ever got in his career, but pretty goddamn loud. And he comes down, he hits Triple H with a chair, smashes Patterson in the head with a chair. he deserved at least about a dozen more for all the shit he did to so many goddamn ring boys and all that stuff. And I'm sorry, there are certain things that I don't believe. There are certain things I do believe. Patterson's a fucking creep. A fucking creep and a fucking piece of shit. And I'll stand by that, and I got no problem taking hate for it. Read up on the stuff if you don't believe me. Read up on the stuff that Roddy Piper might have said. Because there are a lot of stories out there and a lot of people that have a lot of things to say about Pat Patterson being a piece of shit. Great that he came up with the Royal Rumble concept. Only good thing he ever did in wrestling. At least in WWE. So, chair shot to Patterson, chair shot to Briscoe, chair shot to Shane and Vince. Sweet Christ. Some of those headshots, thank God they don't do headshots anymore. He lays out everyone. Then Linda McMahon comes down with Earl Hebner, who's recently fired after they did the whole thing with Jericho and Triple H. And the title change, it wasn't a title change because Earl reversed it. And then Earl got fired. And then this was soon after that. It was 13 days afterwards. And what happened is People's Elbow, 1, 2, 3. Earl counted it, and Rock celebrates with the championship. Crowd celebrates like crazy. Austin had left. Austin's music hits again. And he's towing the DX blown up bus back into ringside because why the fuck not? And then toasts the championship, and The Rock toasts it, and they toast each other, and there we go, and that's it right there. So this was quite a fun pay-per-view. There were some issues that I have with it, but overall this was quite good. It's a shame that they didn't have a women's match, but also they weren't really booking the women all that well. However, hell of a show, hell of a hot crowd. So, agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.